Good day, everyone. Once again, we are Professor Jocelyn Aguila Aguilino, and now I'm going to make a series of videos for obligation and contract. But first, I'm going to discuss the introduction to law. Anyway, this is for my student in University of Caloocan City. Once again, this is our professor, now signing on. Okay, let's start. The general nature of law, what is a law? Siyempre sabihin nyo, it is rules and regulations and many more. So, a law is a rule of action or any system of uniformity. It is the widest and most comprehensive sense, but the term law, as I have said earlier, is any rules of action or any system of uniformity. Law in general determines not only the activities of men as rational being, but also the movement or motion of all objects of creation, whether animate or inanimate. There are divisions of law. The general division of law is divided into two, as you see in your screen. The law as above defined may be divided into two general groups. One is the law in a strict legal sense, which is promulgated and enforced by the state, and a law in the non-legal sense, which is not promulgated, of course, but and enforced by the state. So yung una is known as the state law, while yung the second one or yung non-legal sense includes the divine nature, divine law, the natural law, moral law, and the physical law. So, as a subject state, okay, as a subject of the law, or subjects of law, let's discuss this one by one. Halimbawa yung divine law. What is a divine law? Siyempre, maiisip niyo una. What comes in their mind when you hear the word divine law? It is a law of religion and faith which concerns itself with the concept of sin. Siyempre, pag mali, mali. Pag tama, tama. Okay? Pag sin, it is a contradictory law or contrasted which create a crime and of course salvation. So there are two, the source and the sanction. So pag sinabi yung source, it is formally promulgated by God and revealed or divulged of mankind by means of direct revelation. Di ba under the Old Testament, sa divine law, di ba may Old Testament tayo? And of course, New Testament. Divine law is embodied by the Ten Commandments. Nandyan yung Ten Commandments. It is really by Christians, and this law were formally given by God through Moses, the great Hebrew prophet and leader. Kahit naman anong religion, we have this kind of law na sinusunod that you have a God. Kahit hindi kayo Catholic, hindi kayo Christian, if you're Muslim, you have this law na may rules na sinusundan or that you believe that God created the law or the rules. Of course, we kind of differ according to what one believes and has been established and communicated to mankind by revelation. Thus, to the sabi ko kanina, to the Muslims, si Muhammad is the divine law is embodied by a Muslim Quran. So too is the sanction. The sanction is a divine law, lies in the assurance of certain rewards and punishment in the present life to the life the to come. Diba? Pag may na-violate kayong rules or regulation, lagi may sinasabi na may punishment yan, may sanction. So number two is the natural law. What do you mean by natural law? Natural law may then be defined as the divine inspiration in man of the sense of justice, fairness, and righteousness, not by divine revelation or formal promulgation, but to the internal dictates the reason alone. Pag, pag may mali, may sanction. Pag may tama, may reward. So, number one is binding force. Ano ba ang binding force when it comes to natural law? Natural law is even present in binding on all men everywhere and at all times. Uh, there is in every man a basic understanding of right and wrong, based on the understanding and the fundamental standard or criterion of good and evil. Di ba nung yung pinakauna na pinagbawal na kainin yung fruit, di ba? There is a good and evil. Or in other words, there are some acts or conduct which man knows that in his heart, in his conscience, not in theory, sorry, not by theoretical, but by the dictate of his moral nature are simple good or bad or evil. Diba pag sinabi yung bad, it's wrong, it's evil. It's good, and you're doing good. Pag sinabi yung killing, killing alone is a sin, diba? Killing or stealing for the sake of stealing is a bad or evil because it's contrary to the belief of just and fair and righteousness. Kumbaga, may isa na nagdedehado. So it is not fair. So it is not good. It is bad. Okay. Um, Magaling sounds ko. Nag-shopping sounds ko. Okay, number two, compare to divine law. What is the difference of natural law to the divine law? Diba? Compared to divine law, natural law and divine law are very similar, but they are not. However, the, the same divine law as a law of religion and faith. It is known as to the man by means of direct revelation. While the natural law is said to be impressed in man as a core of his higher self and very at the moment of being or perhaps even before that. Kasi diba, human are the highest form of animal so we can think of the right and wrong. So yung natural law, alam mo mali, huwag mong gawin. Alam mo tama, go ahead. Alam mo may madidihado kang tao, stop it. Okay? Place in the state law. Number three is place in the state law. The natural law has been regarded as a reasonable basis of the state law. So natural law is the basis of the state law. Okay? Pag sinabi nyo, ito yung pinagbasihan kasi nga, we are human and we are the highest form of animals so we can think. We know the right and wrong. So number three subjects of law is the moral law. So number one is, when we talk about the moral law naman, we are speaking of the totality of the norms of good and right conduct growing out of the collective sense of right and wrong or of every community. Now, how will we determine? So, determination of what is wrong or right. So, paano natin ma-determine yung wrong and right? Sabi ko nga sa inyo, we alone as a person can tell what is wrong and right. Okay. At At a comparatively early stage of their existence, human beings learned that it was good for the welfare of the group that the privileged to determine what is right and what is wrong was not left to which member of the group. The more or ways of life were then involved which were always considered right. So, right and correct and obedience to them was demanded by the group. So number two, sanction. As distinguished from the state law, there is no definite legal sanction or punishment imposed by law like imprisonment and or payment of fine or damages for violation of purely moral law. If a member of the community disregard the moral norms, a spontaneous social reaction is produced in the form of public displeasure, contempt, or even indignation. Okay. If, on the other hand, there is conformity on the moral norms, there is created spontaneous social response which may be in the form of public pleasure, approval, or even joy. So what is the binding force kapag sa moral law? Moral law is not absolute. Okay? Hindi sa, pag sinabi mong moral law, pwedeng ma-violate ang ibang law because of this moral law. What is binding force? It varies with the changes of time, condition, or conviction of the people. For example, polygamy is considered immoral, di ba? It is also a crime dito sa Pilipinas, whereas it is allowed in some of the world. Di ba pwede polygamy, um, pwede ka mag-asawa ng marami. Pero majority here in the Philippines, hindi pwede. Whereas it is allowed in some part of the world, di ba? Sabi nga kanina. Today's fashion and women's dress are socially allowed but in different times. They would have been normally condemned. For example, yung ibang babae masisita ka because of your dress code. But yung iba naman, hindi naman, normal lang sa kanila yan. So, yung moral law, when it comes to binding force, it depends on the situation where you are into. So, place in the state law. Place in the state law. Moral law is a great intent, influence, or shaped by the state law. So, it also varies. It depends on the places or situation where you are situated. Now, the state law. Other term used for state law, what are the other term used? This law is also called passive law, municipal law, civil law, or imperative law. It is the law that we refer to when we speak of law is in connection with obligation in contract, marriage, and the administration of justice, the conduct of election, and the entire governmental process itself. Ano naman ang binding force dito? As a rule of action, only state law is enforced by the state with the aid of the physical force if necessary. So, concern of the state law, concern yan, typo lang. The field, the fields of state law are different from those of the divine law, natural law, and moral law. The state law does not concern itself with violation of, nagdidistract ako sa something. Violation, nasa na ba ako? The state law does not concern itself with the violation of the moral law, the rules of action unless they also constitute violation of its command. A full examination of divine law properly belongs to the field of philosophical theology, or the natural law, or the metaphysics of the moral law or ethics and the physical law to physical science and physics. So, we're done with this four. Hope you understand. You can ask questions during our discussion. Okay. So what are the characteristics of law? What are the characteristics of law? It is mentioned there, and uh, it is a flash on your screen. It is a rule of conduct. Why? The law tells us what shall be done and what shall not be done. As a rule, human conduct, as a rule of human conduct, law takes cognizance of the external act only. So it is obligatory. Diba? We will tackle more on obligatory most probably next meeting. Law is concerned a positive command imposing a duty to obey and involving the sanction which forces obedience. Okay. Next, it is promulgated by legitimate authority. Okay. In the democratic country, tayo sa atin, sa Pilipinas, the legitimate or competent authority is the legislature. Under the Constitution, the laws called statutes are enacted by Congress, which is named of the legislative branch of our government. Local government units are also empowered to enact ordinances which have binding force of law. And last, it is of command observance and benefits. Benefits and law is intended by man to serve man. It regulates and it regulates the relation of men to maintain harmony in society and to make order the coexistence possible. Law must therefore be observed by all the benefits of all. It should be beneficial to all. So, kanina pa natin pinag-uusapan ng law. What are the sources of law? Saan ba nanggagaling ang law? Diba? It is plus on the screen. In the Constitution, legislation, administrative rules and regulations, judicial decision, customs, jurisprudence, and other sources. Why in the Constitution? Let's discuss it one by one. Why is it in the Constitution? With particular reference to the Constitution of the Philippines, it may be defined that written instrument by which the fundamental powers of the government is established. So lahat ng mga ginagawang batas, it should not be go beyond the Constitution. Kailangan, kung gagawa ng kung gagawa o magpa-promulgate ng batas o mag-enforce ng batas ang isang local government unit, it should not go beyond the Constitution. Ito pa rin yung basihan. Dapat aligned pa rin dyan. It should be limited and defined and by which this power are distributed among several departments for their safe and useful exercises for the benefit of the people. So, pag sinabi namang, sige, let's discuss further. It is often referred to as the fundamental law or the supreme law or the highest law on the land because it is promulgated by the people themselves, binding on all individual citizens and all agencies of the government. So sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, if this part of the government will make an ordinance, rules and regulations or implement amendments on the rules and regulations on the agency, it should not go beyond the Constitution. It should be under the scope of the Constitution. So legislation, what do you mean by legislation or it is a source of law? Legislation is consists of declaration of legal rules or by competent authorities. So it is the preponderant source of law in the Philippines. Tandaan niyo the preponderant source of law in the Philippines. Act passes by the legislature, so-called the enacted law or the statute law. So the legislation includes the ordinances enacted by the local government unit. So it should be under the scope of the constitution, of course. The administrative or executive order regulation, rules and regulation and ruling. These they are those issued by the administrative official under the legislative authority. This clarify or explain the law and carry into effect its general provision. How about the jurisprudence or the judicial decision? It is the decision of the court. Pag sinabi yung court, it should be the Supreme Court, hindi, hindi ito yung decision ng RTC or Regional Trial Court na susundan na agad or the Court of Appeals. No, it should be the Supreme Court applying or interpreting the law or constitution form part of the legal system of the Philippines. So the decision of the Supreme Court on the point of law are binding on all subordinate courts. So this is called the doctrine of precedent or state or stare decisis. Okay, number five, custom. It is consists of the habit or practice which, through long and uninterrupted usage, have knowledge and approved by the society as binding rules and conduct. It it has the force of law with when recognized and enforced by the state. So custom must be proved as a fact according to the rules of evidence. So pag kinlaim yun na source of law ang custom, it should be evidence or it should be practiced long, long time ago. But custom which are contrary to law, public order, or public policy are not countenance. Siyempre, hindi, bawal din naman yun na, for example, di ba, sa kanila, pag nagnako ka lang, papatay na. Hindi naman. It is against public order or public policy. So, hindi naman yun agad-agad pwede. So, other sources, what are the other sources aside from the above mentioned? Um, to the above mentioned by adding principle of justice and equality, equity, decision of foreign tribunals, opinion of text writers, and religion. However, they are only supplementary. That is, they are resorted to by the court in the presence of the other sources. Siyempre, titimbangin din yan kung paano ba talaga siya i-implement. Okay. Ayan na. Tapos ko na pala yung other sources, sources of law. Now, let's have this one. The organization of court. Ito yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng court kung saan dapat tayo mag-file ng cases or saan siya lalagay, diba? So, under the Constitution, the judicial power of or the power to uh, decide actual cases and controversies involve the interpretation and application of law, which is vested in the Supreme Court, as I have mentioned a while ago. So we have this three main division of our system in the government. One is the regular court, where the Philippine judicial system consists of the hierarchy of courts, resembling in a pyramid with the Supreme Court at the apex, yan pinakamataas. Under present legislation, the other courts are syempre sa regular court, yung IPC, MPC, on the, meron pa tayong iba, yung other courts are Court of Appeals, Regional Trial Court, setting in the different provinces and cities. in the Metropolitan Trial Court in metropolitan area established by law, Metropolitan Trial Court in cities not forming part of the metropolitan area, and the municipalities, and the Municipal Circuit Trial Court in areas defined as municipal circuit municipal circuit. Yung circuit court exercise jurisdiction over two or more cities and or municipalities. In special courts naman, aside from the court, there are under the Constitution a special anti-graft and corruption court yung sa Bayan. It form part of the judicial hierarchy together with the Court of Appeals kapag taxes ang pinag-uusapan. Diba? And last is the quasi-judicial agency. Ang quasi-judicial agency are administrative body under the executive branch forming quasi-judicial function like the NLRC, yung National Labor Relations Commission, the Security and Exchange Commission, the LTFRB, um, ano pa, and the Independence Commission kagaya ng civil service, the election commission, the audit, yan, mga quasi-judicial yan. So their function are described as quasi-judicial because they involve the settlement of controversies under these agencies. Okay. If you have any question, anyway, we will be discussing this part. This is just an additional reference for you. And that's all for our video for today for the introduction to law. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that every time I'm going to upload the video, you will be notified. Thank you, class. Once again, good day and hear my view and hear my next video. Next time, I'll put my ano there. Walang baka mag-gusto kayo. Okay, anyway, goodbye.